Now we're here on part 5. We're at the front of the case, and what we're going to do before we put the piston in, over by the, we generally call it a rooster cone, but it's the park reverse neutral linkage. There's a pin that goes in here, and we're going to put that pin right here. So normally that stops the part that locks the gear from going all the way back normally, but make sure you put this pin in the hole as you see it. Okay, the next thing we have to do is to put the detent spring on the, engage it with the rooster comb here, and you tighten the bolt up. So we'll go let you see that being done. Okay, make sure you have it lined up properly. This spring is what provides the tension so that when you put it in park reverse neutral, you can feel it. If it's not there, your gear shift lever just will slide up and down from park reverse neutral very easily. And if you forgot it, there's no way of putting this back on with the transmission inside the car. So you had to take it back out. Okay, now we're going to put this rubber, this is a rubber molded piston. You see the protrusions in there. You put that in, and this doesn't need any type of special tool to put it in. It goes in quite easily. The parts in the case are chamfered to where you can pretty much push this in. Just take some oil and rub it around the seals and around the inner part of the case, so that it will slide down easily. And then you can take a screwdriver or something and tap it down, make sure it's at the bottom. That's what I'm doing now. Now you put in the spring, and you see how the spring is situated onto the protrusions that's on that piston. Okay, once you get that in place, and the next thing you do is get the snap ring that goes into the case. However, now this is probably going to be the hardest part of assembling this transmission inside the case. I'm not using a tool, I'm using a screwdriver, and I'm trying to press the spring down and push the snap ring into the groove that's inside the case. Now this takes some time. It took me a lot of time. Now there might be a special tool made. You could possibly make a tool that will press that spring down while you easily snap that spring in place. In this case, I didn't have that tool, and if I couldn't get this spring in, then I would have gotten that tool, but I didn't need it. Just took me a little time to push the spring down and twist the screwdriver to push that snap ring in place, and it's going to take you some time also. Now, last time I called, Nissan for parts for this transmission. The answer I got was there is not a part. They do not sell a part for this transmission whatsoever. They will sell you a remanufactured transmission, and they do want your core, but they don't sell a transmission, okay, or sell the parts for this transmission. So since the parts again are hard to get for this, I recommend you stay away from this unless you decide you don't want to have a choice on who fixes your transmission. When you have a choice, you normally can get a less expensive price of having it fixed. When you only have to go to one person, then they can charge you whatever they want. Okay, now this was a repair on this transmission only, which is why I didn't break down the clutches and the drums and things, because that's not what the problem was. The problem with this transmission was the pulleys that you see, and this one had 155,000 miles on it. So the CVTs can last. If they're lasting 155,000 miles, I don't see where the manufacturers are going to change from making them, because a lot of the manufacturers have reduced their car warranties down to 35,000 or 40,000 miles anyway. So if you go past their warranty, it's out of their hands. This is the way they feel. Okay, so now let's see, did we get a close-up to let you see? After struggling so, I was able to get that spring in, and I'll let you see how it's supposed to look. The snap ring, that is, in the case. So you see it inside the groove, and it's holding that spring in. So there it is right there. It's in the groove. And that's what you want. You want it in a groove. Okay, now you're going to put the first set of clutches in. Now there is a plate here, and you look how it goes down, because it's a dish-shaped plate. The outer edge of that dish should be up and not turning down, and the inside should be going down. So the outer edge is up of that dish-shaped plate as you place it down into the case. Okay, then you put on a steel plate, and then you follow it with a clutch, and then another steel, and you got to make sure they go in the proper slot. That's not it. Okay, they haven't engaged inside the lugs in there. Okay, and then you go with another clutch, and then you go with another steel, and then another clutch, and then you end up with the biggest steel. No, let me see, is that, no, that's another steel, a clutch. The biggest steel will be the pressure plate, and that's it. Now it's thicker than the rest of the steel, as it is in all transmissions. And then you get the snap ring that holds that pack of clutches within the case. Okay, now I want you to also know that there is no book right now. There might be one a manufacturer book, I'm not sure, but there is no aftermarket book made for this transmission to tell you what each part is. Those of us who have been doing transmissions for a while know how to do it. So this video is for those who may not have a book and need to see how things go inside. Alright, now you're going to put the first bearing in and look how it goes. Now I'm going to put a clutch in too, excuse me, the drum in, but I'm going to let you hear the sound. I want you to hear what I'm listening to as I get it all the way down to the bottom, because you have to make sure those clutches that we put in there engage within the outside of the drum. But it has to be to the bottom, so if you hear it clicking up and down like that, what I'm doing is trying to hear the middle part of that drum slap against the bottom of that washer. Once you hear that solid slap, then you know that you have it all the way down engaged. If you don't, then some of the clutches, the drum have not completely gone to the bottom, and some of the clutches have it contained. You don't want that, because when you start to put things together, nothing won't fit perfectly because it will be too tight. That normally shows what you're being unable to turn the input shaft after you have tightened the bolts down. Furthermore, if you tighten them all down, it's possible to break something or bend something. Okay, pay attention to the washers. There's a washer on the bottom that goes down. You may want to use some Vaseline or Translube to keep it stuck there. And then you do the same thing with this drum here. You spin it, and it's not going down as you could see. Now it is. As you see, it goes down, down, because it has to engage with all of the clutches that were put in the case. Okay, so you have to turn it, and you want to hear that metal to metal thud, which I'm going to let you hear again. The reason I can't keep all of this the sound on, because we are playing background music, and if there's background music, YouTube likes to disable the whole video. So that's the only reason. So I'll let you hear what I'm listening to when I try to get this drum all the way down and all the clutches engaged. That noise there, that's a metal to metal contact. Okay, so now you had a chance to hear that. Alright, now the next step we have is the bearing that goes on this drum here, which this is the input drum, should be, and this is where the bearing the pump would ride on. You see in what direction it goes. The next step is to put on the pump gasket. You can use dowel pins if you want, if you don't feel that you can align the pump up properly, or if the gasket moves out of alignment. You can put 2 dowel pins there to keep it steady. Then the next thing that goes on is the pump. Now understand, this is only a repair, so there was a lot of internal things that was not disassembled. The only thing again that was disassembled was that pulley section that you can go and see on one of the videos there. And what we did was take parts out of a good transmission and put them in here so we can get the customer on the road. Okay, so after you put the pump on, you make sure it's flush. Then you put all of the pump bolts in. And as you know, I like to, when I put them in, I like to turn them a bit to make sure that they're inside the threads, because I want to make sure I guard against cross threading. Okay. Then last thing on this pump, before you tighten it up, you want to make sure that you get the O-ring, which is right here. This is the torque converter O-ring, goes right on the input shaft. Okay, make sure you put that on, don't forget it, and you put some Vaseline or some transmission lube on there. And once you get that done, then the rest is to tighten down the pump bolts. Okay, now we're going to move on to part 6 and wrap this up if we can.